caught a dear man. I'll take you far away under the sycamore tree.
And welcome to this week's edition of Twin Peaks Unwrapped. I'm Brian Kozowski, and beside me is
Ben Durant.
And today, Ben, we have the godfather of Twin Peaks, John Thorne, and the Sultan of Soul, Scott Ryan, from Blue Rose Magazine on the show.
Yeah, hey John and Scott.
Hey guys, good to talk to you.
Hello, everyone.
So you guys have been busy. Didn't you guys just get back from the UK Fest?
We did, yes. It was the first time I had ever been, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great. I think it was my favorite Twin Peaks event that I ever went to. My favorite trip and everything. It just was awesone.
Wow, and you've been to a bunch of Twin Peaks Fest events. What made this one so special?
Well, I just feel like everyone, I knew so many more people that were there, and I don't know, seeing Rebecca Del Rio sing No Stars, she just like blows you to the back of the room with her power and her voice. Or however you say it, from Mulholland Drive was just amazing, and those were like bucket list moments for me. I had never met Bobby Briggs before, and we had a great moment with Dana Ashbrook. I mean, John, do you want to tell him about our Dana Ashbrook moment?
Yeah, sure. We were lucky enough to go up and speak with him. He was signing autographs, and we just went up and chatted with him for a little bit. And I happened to have photographs with me that Richard Beamer had taken from the final episode, sort of the wrap party for the original series of Twin Peaks. And I also had some photos of the original shoot of the pilot out on Bainbridge Island. And I showed those to Dana Ashbrook, and he was just absolutely delighted to see these pictures. He paged through them and pointed out people that he hadn't seen, I guess, in quite some time, remembered who they were. He was just sort of overcome with memories of the time being on the set. And it was just so much fun to watch him and listen to him react to those pictures. He really was reliving some of that. And I think we made an impression on him, which was kind of nice. And so that was a nice moment for sure.
And one of the things that you guys got to experience was it Twin Peaks VR? Do you want to talk about that, Scott?
Ooh.
Well, Gideon Bonaparte did Twin Peaks VR, and I'm going to be honest, I didn't want to do it. And I was there the day before the fest started, and I was setting up and, getting the Blue Rose that we had to drop off the issues. And Gideon said, hey, do you want to try this virtual reality, see what a old guy I am. I don't know what the VR stands for. Is it videotape? I don't know.
Virtual reality, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I really didn't even want to do it. I thought, what do I care? I got so sucked into it. Like, I was loving it. It was just like being in Snoqualmie, and I love being in Snoqualmie. And, he's not doing anything that is copyright infringement against Twin Peaks. He just went to the real locations, and he kind of films it, including the Reber house, the Palmer house.
Do you get to go inside? Do you get to go inside the house, or?
Yes, you go upstairs into Laura's bedroom, and I mean, it just was amazing. It was really moving, and I loved that so much. He did a phenomenal job. I know that other events are planning doing other things, but I don't think it's this. Like his is very specific.
And this Festival of Disruption, I don't know if if that's the same one. I thought there was going to be VR at the.
No, that's a different one.
Oh, it's a different
I think that one is more of a computerized thing. I think you go in the red room. This was not that. They actually, like, he filmed it with the drone, and you kind of fly above the Double R Diner. And it just was amazing. Laura Stewart from 25 Years Later, she did it, and she just cried afterward, and she was like, I can't believe these places are real.
That's something.
And I'm like, yeah, it's real.
And you've been there, so you knew. I mean, it's even, I think, more special when you've been there and then actually feel like you're there again.
That's cool.
In the UK. So, yeah.
Yeah, you can experience Twin Peaks anywhere. We happily leave our country to experience Twin Peaks in another country, and it's awesome.
Yeah. You mentioned the Blue Rose magazine. You actually unveiled the cover at the UK Fest, didn't you?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we did. We were up on stage with Scott and Courtney Stallings and myself, and we had the cover for issue 8, which is a beautiful cover, and
it is.
We had a nice big reproduction of it that we were able to show to the audience. So I think that was a lot of fun to do. And Scott, of course, enjoyed being up on stage, I think, too.
Oh,
right, Scott?
I'm shy.
Scott Ryan, Courtney Stallings, and John Thorne from the Blue Rose magazine.
Hello, everyone. We're here from the Blue Rose, and I want to thank Lindsay so much for accepting us. The first article in the first issue of the Blue Rose is about the UK Twin Peaks Fest. And she has always supported us, and we support her. And isn't that the Twin Peaks community? Yeah. I mean, come on, and Blake and everyone. This is not the brainchild of me, it's the brainchild of John, me, Courtney, and all of the writers that are here. I'm going to name them, but I'd forget someone, so I'm not going to pretend that I did. This is not the cover, by the way. It's behind here. That's blank. Just so you know. I was going to wear a deer head and pork, but someone else already did. So issue 8 is very special to us. So Wayne Barnes did this cover, and let's take a look. This is Wayne Barnes' work.
I'm shy. Yeah, if you go out to my Facebook page, which is just my regular Facebook, I think I did actually post it through the Blue Rose. We videoed us up on stage and debuting the issue 8 cover. Wayne Barnes did this tribute to Cheryl Lee that is unbelievable. I mean, I don't know how every cover this year I've said it's my favorite cover. I mean, we started with 5 with Jeff Lemire. That was my favorite cover ever. Yeah. And then we had the Palmer House, and I was like, that's my favorite cover. And then we had Blake's Women of Lynch, and I was like, oh, that's my favorite cover. And now we've got Cheryl Lee. I mean, so the next cover is just going to be like a picture of me slumped in a chair.
No, it is not. Just so everyone knows.
Now, is there any plans to make this cover or any cover poster size to sell on your store?
Well, one of the things that I always say is the Blue Rose does not want to be in the poster business. But the way the Blue Rose runs, because we're not struggling to get by, but we're not a major corporation, let's put it that way. So we can't pay Wayne and Blake what someone really would be paid to do this work. So we don't own the covers. Like, that is Wayne's cover.
Okay.
And I believe Wayne will make it available at some point. I hope he does. I mean, it's beautiful, but it won't be something that we do. And the same with Blake. Eventually, he'll make that art. But they're very kind to let us, sort of have it for a couple months so we can move the magazines. So, my house isn't just filled with boxes of magazines. The family's eating dinner around. Oh, pull that magazine box up and have a seat. We're trying to get rid of these things. So eventually, I would think Wayne would sell that.
But at the UK, you did have a poster size, and I don't know, was that given away or was it auctioned off or?
Well, Rose Thorne, no relation to John, she is part of the Double R Club, and they do a cabaret versus cancer thing. So we donated both the large covers, because we had an issue 7 and 8, to them. And so they will probably get some people to sign it or do some auction, and that'll all go to charity, which, again, we try not... We're in the business of writing about Twin Peaks, and that's really all we want to be in the business and not, marketing T-shirts and coffee cups. And although, wouldn't everyone buy a John Thorne coffee cup? They probably
I would.
Yeah.
Did we get his face on the cup? No response from John.
I just said highly doubted. I don't know why anyone would want. It would say on the side, "It was all a dream." That's what it would say.
Aww.
Issue 8. I'd love to talk about issue 8. Actually, Scott, you not that long ago told us what was going to happen. You kind of revealed it on our show that you got the interview of a lifetime. Do you want to talk more about that?
That's all I want to talk about. Like, I go to the grocery store, and while I'm scanning, I tell the lady, "Did you ever know that I met Sheryl Lee?" No, I'm very excited for people to finally read this interview. I've been sitting on it since February 24th. That's a long time to be sitting on some really, really great information. So I'm just can't wait for people to read it. The magazine is at the printers now, so I mean it's so close.
And how much time did you get to talk to her about?
I think it was a little bit over 2 hours we spent together.
That's amazing. That's really a good amount of time. And
it's a great interview, too.
Yeah. And so you were nice enough to... We're not going to spoil anything here, but I'll say that she comes off very warm just from reading her. Somebody, I don't know how you can get that feeling, but you just read that interaction between her and you, and she comes off...
I was crying reading it. I was like, I'm so happy for Scott. This is amazing.
And for the most part, I hold it together. I mean, every once in a while, I got a little excited, but she really is that person. I'm glad that it comes out, because when I read it, I almost feel like, oh, but it was so much better, But I think that it does come out.
Let me jump in here and just, if you don't mind, talk a little bit about my reaction to this interview. I think this is, obviously I'm selling the magazine, but this is a great interview. I was really impressed when sent it to me. I knew it was going to be a fun interview. I knew he was going to, have a good conversation with Sheryl Lee, but what I didn't expect was that he was going to basically, get into the nuts and bolts of Twin Peaks with her to the extent that he did. And I think it really was extremely helpful that Scott was able to sit down with her face to face for a long period of time and just talk about Twin Peaks with her. And she opens up a little bit about her own personal feelings about what the world of Twin Peaks means to her, but also she gives us a little bit of an interpretive view of how Twin Peaks functions, at least in her mind. And I think that's extremely valuable. I found it to be really eye-opening. So, there's been a lot of interviews with some of the actors on, websites and here and there, and people get them for 5 or 10 minutes. And those are great, but this goes a lot further than that. I'm really, really pleased that Scott was able to get this opportunity and, really get Sheryl Lee to open up about Twin Peaks. It's really, really good.
It really is.
Yes.
It is something. Congratulations, Scott.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it's weird because, you always get balanced between, being humble, because I am humbled that I got to spend this time with her. But on the flip side, I honestly think it was the best interview I've ever done with anyone, whether that's Letterman or 30-something or Twin Peaks. because I feel like I'd waited for it for so long. I had questions I wanted to know. I wanted to understand how she did what she did in Firewalk with Me.
Yeah.
And I feel like after meeting with her and talking with her, I do understand it for the first time.
It's so cool. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you guys touched on a lot of things, and I love that she even gets into her craft a little bit. I kind of think that's really special, too, when an actor's willing to open up and say this is how they take on a character and stuff. And it was so well done.
And after reading it, Scott, I wanted more. I was like,
I know.
Wait. This is 2 hours?
Yeah, we're going to get the next part of the interview on the next issue, right?
No, that really is it. I mean, in the whole
So
thing,
good.
I did cut an extra section about Backbeat. There were two... we talked about Backbeat for a while because that is one of my favorite movies, and I'm a huge Beatles fan. And so that's really the only thing I cut. There's just one paragraph. I mean, that's it, guys. It's 5,100 words in that article.
It goes by quick when you read that article.
So good.
It is awesome. And my second favorite is another Scott Ryan interview with David Patrick Kelly. That interview was great.
Jerry
Horn. He's a fascinating character.
He is something, and you touch on all sorts of stuff, and I think that's something that's great with you, Scott, is that you'll talk about Twin Peaks, but you'll touch on all these other things that interest the artist. And
that's sort of the way that I'm moving, just personally, and I had talked to John about it throughout this year, and like John said, there are a million places, your show included, where you can hear people talk about Twin Peaks, and I don't know, how are you really going to get David Patrick Kelly to tell you something about season 1 and 2 that you haven't heard before, and even season 3. So I feel like both pieces are more character pieces where you're really getting to know these people.
Yeah.
And the David Patrick Kelly one really was crazy because I did it like the day after Christmas last year. And so we've also been sitting on that one for a long time. And I don't know, we just had so much fun. I mean, we sing a lot in the thing and we had fun. He was what I always wanted him to be.
I want to hear the audio of you two singing.
I know. I was thinking like sometime it would be fun to do a little section, because especially when we got to talking about the Beatles and he starts singing the bass line of You Won't See Me. And it was just so much fun, so I started singing on top of him, and I don't know. I'm a huge Beatles fan, so it's weird that like this is our Beatles issue in some weird way.
And you're always getting to Julie Cruz you sang with. That was a great interview on your Red Room podcast. And then I'm in my mind hearing his voice and your voice singing when reading that article. I'm like, Scott's new gimmick is he's going to sing with his guests at the end.
there you go.
Then it all started on your show, and I sang the Sycamore Tree
Yes.
a couple years ago. I don't know, is that 3 years now?
Yeah.
Love it.
It's got to be a new thing. I think we should end today's show with all of us singing.
No, that's not going to happen.
There's 4 of us. We could do For the Longest Time by Billy Joel.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's
we
a
can do
good
it.
one.
Yeah.
So there's this other article, Punch Drunk.
We can say that there's an article in here by Matt Marone, who's one of the writers, an excellent writer for the Blue Rose magazine, and he did some research on a small element of season 3. And what he discovered was some very interesting little bits of information that kind of give us some background to one small aspect of season 3. I don't want to overhype it, but it is a great piece of detective work.
It is.
I mean, the story that he tells is not only interesting in what it's about, but also interesting in the way he went about doing it and how he tracked some of this information down, and how, in fact, when he went to Sabrina Sutherland with some questions, she didn't have the answers. So he found answers out about this topic that they didn't, even that the Twin Peaks production offices did not know. If you're a diehard Twin Peaks fan and you like to know every little bit of trivia about everything, then this is the article for you. It's really a lot of fun.
Truly is.
It's another impressive piece.
And I'm one of those people. Like, this is an element that I wanted more answers to, and it is a small piece of the whole of the series. But it was still something that's like, I want more information, and I got it. I got it in this article, and it was really amazing. Like you said, John, great detective work by Matt. And I would definitely recommend people checking it out.
Yeah, it was great. I'm like, what are the coincidences? Like the coincidence of his profession in that piece. It was just
Exactly.
wow. Okay, couldn't get better than that.
Those things aligned very nicely and allowed for him to do the kind of research. Really, I don't think Scott and I would have had access to some of the sources that he did. So again, it is a small thing. It's not like we're revealing some major revelation about it, but there's a lot of obsessive Twin Peaks fans out there. I think they'll be happy to see this.
The truth is, you will read something and learn something no one in the world knows right now. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, not even Sabrina. I mean, nobody in Twin Peaks probably production knew this, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
And I do want to say something about Matt Marone. He contacted us, I don't even know when, before the summer, and gave us he had a piece ready to go, and it was great. And it was, at that time, we were prepping for Women of Lynch, so we had to hold it. And then in that time, he's written, I think, 3 more articles.
Wow.
For the Blue Rose magazine.
Yeah, and for us. And so this wasn't even supposed to be in this issue, but because this issue does have a secret, if you will, that no one knows, we were like, well, we've got to get this out as soon as we can. So we've already promoted Matt to a senior writer on the staff because I think he will be like part of the normal family with me, John, and Courtney being in every issue because his work is amazing. I mean, again, you guys can't give away the secret, but even without the secret, wasn't the story he told fascinating?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
I mean, he's going to be a great addition to the Blue Rose. We're really excited about him joining us in year 3.
And so Courtney Stallings, she did an article, How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love David Lynch's Hair. John, can you share it with us what this article is?
Oh, you're going to ask me about this? I think Scott's the. Well, I mean, look, Courtney. I love everything that Courtney writes. She's just a good writer, and she decided to take on this topic. And it's a short piece, but it's just a lot of fun to read. It's one of the lighter pieces, I guess, in the magazine, but extremely well done. And it's about David Lynch's hair.
That's great.
Yeah, Courtney worked her butt off on issue 7, and I wanted to give her issue 8 off. I said, you just did so much, and she said, you know what, I just want to do something a little silly. And you cannot imagine how much fun we had saying David Lynch's hairpiece. There were a million 2-page jokes going back and forth about Courtney and David Lynch's hairpiece. Are you bringing the hairpiece? How are we attaching the hairpiece? And I do like when the Blue Rose gets light as well, which, we do with John Piricello, but it's kind of hard to do sometimes with
Yeah.
It's almost like a palate cleanser in some ways. It's like, I think it's only one page, but you get that, and then you're kind of like, okay, now let's get on to the next piece. And it
gets heavier and heavier. These articles, it gets crazier.
When we get to the end with John Thorne stuff, we're starting to get deep in here.
It's deep. It's good.
The Bookhouse Boy review. Scott, do you want to share with us about that? Andrew wrote that?
Yeah, we have kind of a double play on books in this one with a piece by Andrew and one by Andreas. One is reviewing Room to Dream, which, again, we are print, and I mean, I know everyone covered Room to Dream the second it came out, and John and I kind of went back and forth. Should we be covering this or should we not? But we felt that this was a major piece of literature about Lynch, and it deserves to be captured. So we have a review of that. And then Andreas, who we just love so much, he gives us an excerpt of his book.
Yeah.
And his book is going to be phenomenal. He gets access, to these people that are amazing. We're so honored that we have this relationship with Andreas.
Yeah, it's interesting that Scott mentions about the David Lynch book Room to Dream. I mean, back in the Wrapped in Plastic days, there was really no internet, and this would have been like one of the main things we would have been making sure we'd include in the next issue because it's significant David Lynch production, this book. But then nowadays, like Scott said, we actually debated it. It's like, do we really need to put a review in of Room to Dream? Because by the time this comes out, the book will have been 6 months old. But the review is pretty good, I think, and I think it's an important book, needs to be reviewed. And so we did. We've got a decent summary and a brief analysis of what this book's about in here.
And I'm going to go off book here because we're on books. And because I actually have not asked John this question, so I'm going to use this podcast time to take it.
Oh, no.
I know that, John, you aren't all the way through Room to Dream because you're reading it slowly and you're taking your time. But as someone who's covered Lynch for 20, 30 years, tell me something you learned in that book. Is there something that really stuck out to you that you're like, whoa, after all these years, I never knew this? Look at me putting John on the spot. But,
well, it's interesting because I bought the hardcover and then I wanted to make notes. And so I ended up also buying a digital version so I could highlight sections of it. And so, yes, there were a number of things that Lynch says about his outlook on the world and his philosophy that I've been highlighting, particularly things like some of the Buddhist he mentions reading a book on Buddhism and talking about how the world is an illusion, and I certainly highlighted that because I think that informs a lot of what he's produced, including very much Twin Peaks. We live inside a dream. So it's things like that I'm looking for and finding in the book. I am reading it slowly. I'm just getting through, I guess just finished the Inland Empire chapter. Reading the chapters from essentially Fire Walk with Me up through Mulholland Drive is fascinating because that's the time we were making Wrapped in Plastic. It really brings back a lot of memories because I was so immersed in the world of David Lynch in those years. So it's reminding me a lot of what was happening back then. I don't know if that really answers your questions. I'd have to go back and look at my notes. There is some information that's in there that gives you some insight into the philosophy of David Lynch. So I'm enjoying that.
And I love that Wrapped in Plastic is mentioned in the book. It's referred to there. Yeah. So that's really special.
Yeah, I was really, really happy about that. Both Craig and myself are mentioned, and of course the magazine is mentioned. It's just one sentence, but it is included in the Twin Peaks chapter. As I said, I know we're simply a footnote, a tiny, tiny footnote in the history of Twin Peaks, which is fine, but we're still a footnote, and that was really nice to have it mentioned in this overview of Lynch's life and his art. That was great.
And I know the debate you guys are talking about, well, would you put this book into your magazine or not? And for me, I'm always like, I always want it to be like an archive. I want to be able to go back to Blue Rose magazine and say, oh yeah, that's when they covered this and that's when they did this. But I'm also probably always thinking about Wrapped in Plastic, where it was, you guys they're different magazines, and so that's always hard for me to realize. But I love that you guys put this in there. I think it's good for people
who may not have known the book came out.
And maybe they need to read it again. I mean, they need to find out about it, and it'll be a good Christmas present.
Yeah.
There you go.
Is that what you're planning on getting me for Christmas?
Yes. Do you have it? I hope you...
Well, I could have one from you as well.
All right. So the last article is one that John you did, right? You worked with I gotta butcher his last name, Tim
Kreider.
And it's funny. I feel like there are some similarities in the sense that you had this whole dream theory back in the day, and that he kind of has his own dream theory on season 3. And how was that actually talking with him about his theory?
Yeah, well, let me tell you who Tim Kreider is. He's an essayist and an author. He's been around for some time. He's got a number of books that he's written. And Craig Miller, who I did Wrapped in Plastic with, and we kind of, quote-unquote, discovered him when he was writing essays for Film Quarterly magazine in the 90s. And he wrote a great essay on The Straight Story, and then another great essay on Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. And we really liked the way he analyzed film. We actually had an opportunity to interview him back in the Wrapped in Plastic days. And this was I think 17 years ago. Wow. We interviewed him about, just his approach to criticism and analysis of film. And he was a big influence on me. I mean, really, I kind of changed the way I started looking at Lynch's work after I read some of his stuff. So then over the summer, I happened across this new essay that he put up on the internet about season 3. I had no idea it was out there, and I read it, and I was like, wow, he's got a big dream theory essay on season 3. And I was about to reach out to him. This is true. I was about to send him an email or try to find a way to contact him because I'd lost touch. And he emailed me 24 hours later, and he said, I don't know if you remember me, but I've got this essay. And I said, I do, and I'm so excited about it. I'd really like to interview you about it for the magazine. And so we made contact again. And yeah, this is not an article or an essay, this piece. This is actually an interview that I conducted with Tim Kreider about this theory that he has, which just quickly sum it up is that he summarizes that all of season 3 is a dream. There's a lot of evidence to support that by someone named Dale Cooper. And I won't give you all the details because they're not mine really to give, but that perhaps this Dale Cooper's trying to atone for something that he did. It's an interesting theory. It's an uncomfortable theory. It's a theory that even Tim Kreider says that he doesn't particularly like, but the evidence kept pointing him in this direction. So I wanted to dig deep on this with him. And not only this theory, but just his take on other parts of season 3, what his reaction was, what his thinking was about some elements of it. So that's what this is. It's basically a conversation between him and me about season 3. The fascinating thing is it actually complements the Cheryl Lee interview, because in the Cheryl Lee interview, I'm not going to tell you exactly what she says, but on page 5 of the Blue Rose, Cheryl Lee talks about something that almost exactly matches up with what Tim Kreider is talking about. And I thought that the synchronicity there was pretty amazing.
Very cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
So they're bookends. You start off with Cheryl Lee and you end with...
I'm saving that interview from when I get the physical copy. I read everything but that, and I was like, this is big, and this is a lot. I really want to be able to sit comfortably in a chair to read it, not on my phone, or
You want to pencil notes in the margins as you read this.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about John and Tim's discussion. It makes you want to argue. It was really funny. I don't even know if I made it all the way through before I called John to argue. And it's not, I was like, I really love this article, but it's pissing me off. There are just ways you want to argue, and that is why the fact that John compares it to his Chet Desmond theory, I think is a good idea, because the best theories kind of make you angry because they're taking something probably away from that you like. And so I think this article is going to spark some good debate.
I would just add to that, I see it slightly differently than Scott does. I totally get where you're coming from. But for me, this interview, I would say, for this theory, I don't entirely agree with this theory. I had some problems with it, and I bring them up in this interview. But the beauty of this theory was it started me thinking in a whole different way. And I started seeing some things I hadn't seen before. And so, in effect, I've kind of come up with I actually mentioned a few of them in my back and forth with Tim, some new ideas about how we might, they're different than his, but how we might look at season 3, how we might interpret it. How do we get our hands around it? So for me, it stimulated me. I was like, oh, now I'm thinking in some different ways. So that's what I loved about it.
And John, it's funny you say that, because I feel like that's what your work does. Whenever I read your work, it makes me start thinking, and I go off on a whole other path, and I think about all these other things. But that's
the beauty of it.
Yeah. But I want to say that's really your work too. I mean, you do an amazing job when you put out stuff, getting people thinking and exploring new avenues.
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, and I Tim Kreider was one of those guys way back when who got me thinking in different ways, and he's still doing it. So it's nice to have this small piece in here, sort of a callback to the old days too. So that was nice.
Yeah. And so you guys are always thinking beyond. I mean, I guess you're going to be getting into year 3 pretty soon.
Yes.
Yeah, what are we going to do, Scott?
Well, I mean, I had the whole me slumped in a chair idea, and you already
Right.
got that down.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, a whole issue of that. It can
Yeah.
be like a flip book. You just flip and you slump further and
Or you
further.
can just like, pop up, or you can do something.
He just falls to the ground exhausted.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons we're here is to promote issue 8 because both of us feel that it's one of our strongest issues ever. And you go out to bluerosemag.com and pick up issue 8, and you're going to really enjoy Cheryl Lee and all of these other things. But the other thing is we're here to do a major push that we are announcing on Twin Peaks Unwrapped that right now, for the first time ever, you can go out and renew for year 3. We've been holding it, and all these people have been asking us, like, when can we get it? When can we get it? And we're opening it up right now, so you can go out and subscribe. We really need every single subscriber who subscribed for year 2 to subscribe to year 3. If that happens, there'll be a year 4. If we have a drop off, there's maybe not going to be a year 4. So we're looking at this as our final exam, our report card, whatever you want to look at it, for the Twin Peaks community to say, you know, well, maybe 3 years of the Blue Rose is enough. We're moving on from Twin Peaks, or you guys want us to go back on. You know, we're both capitalists, and we're going to believe in the market.
Oh.
So go out to bluerosemag.com and get year 3. As always, it is cheaper from now till December 31st than it will be starting January 1st. That's what we've done the last year. So that way the first people get it for the cheapest price. So if you've always been the first one to jump in and subscribe, you've always paid the least amount. And that money prints. You know, I mean, that's how this works. We've never done a Kickstarter. We've never asked for money that you don't get a product for. But it's obviously the subscribers that pay for this monumental printing cost.
You know, there's friends out there that's like, oh yeah, I'm going to subscribe. Just don't wait. Do it now. As soon as it's available.
I know.
You should renew.
Do it now.
Yeah.
And on social media, you always see one person bring up Wrapped in Plastic. Then someone else will bring up, I know about another magazine. They brought it back. Like, I've seen posts where people are confused. They're like, I think that magazine's back. And you have to interject and you have to educate. You're like, no, subscribe to the Blue Rose magazine. So people out there on social media, if you see people confused, put them in their spot and say, you need to subscribe to this magazine right now.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things Scott and I have talked about over the years we've been doing the magazine now is that we know, you know, it's a different age these days than it was back when Wrapped in Plastic was out. And we're competing with the internet, and we're competing with just, you know, so much information that's just coming at people so fast. And we talk about how we want to slow things down a little bit and take our time and get into some topics. And I think issue 8 is a great example exactly of what our intent was. So Scott sits down for 2 hours with Cheryl Lee and talks about Twin Peaks and about her career and about her performances. We had the opportunity to do that and then put it in this magazine. And then I had an opportunity to talk to, you know, essentially a Twin Peaks scholar about theory about Twin Peaks and unwrap it there, little, no pun intended. And so it fits the print media. I think there's a value to it in that way. We are slowing down a little, and we're trying to focus ourselves on getting a little deeper into some things. And that's what we want to do for year 3. We do have some plans for year 3. We have some potential interviews lined up. We have already talked about some themes for a couple of issues that are coming. I don't know if Scott wants to talk about what they are. I'll let him do that if he does. But we do have some plans for year 3, and we want to we want to continue the work. We want to build on what we've done over the last couple of years. So hopefully we can do that. I know we'll be able to do that in 3. Hopefully we can do that past that. But again, it is a subscription, and we do depend on people sending us money so we can send them this product. And if they send us money, we'll keep sending them. I think we'll be sending them a pretty good magazine every couple of months.
Definitely.
Yeah, is there a way we could do that thing where they send us money and we don't send them anything?
Well, some people do that, but we do not.
Oh, okay, that's what we don't do.
Don't do that.
I will give away one thing. and that is that issue 11 will be The Men of Lynch, which will come out in August. We've already got the writers, so we appreciate those who now will want to ask if they can write for it. We've actually already given out the assignments because I know you guys had Courtney on, and thank you so much for doing that. And
it's great talking with her.
And giving her the respect that she earned and deserves for what she pulled off in issue 7. But we started work on that in December, and still we're down to the wire because doing 40 essays and getting all those characters is hard. So we actually started The Men of Lynch, I think it might even be 6 weeks ago.
Wow.
Because we want to be sure we do it right because we have a lot to live up to with The Women of Lynch. Now, I can guarantee you it's not going to have that coating that issue 7.
Oh, that nice glossy coating.
Again.
That was something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was something, and it was a one of a kind. I can guarantee you. We would need many, many, many more subscribers to try to do that. It was a very interesting experiment, but no. But we'll still have the. We've got some great writers for The Men of Lynch.
And do you know how many essays you're going to do for The Men of Lynch?
Yeah, it'll be 40 again. 40 male characters. Hard again to pick people, and even still, we'll probably change it, even though the assignments have been given out. I feel like, we're in this one, we're really even going to some of Lynch's shorts, and I feel like we might have hit every film and everything he kind of did. I'm not sure. Am I lying, John? I'm not sure.
No, we've been back and forth on the lists a number of times, and I think we do cover obviously the main films, but I think we get into a few of the more obscure works too. I have to go back and look at the list, but that's what we did that's what we did in Women of Lynch. We had, and Courtney did, but that issue has a few characters that are pretty obscure, but are important. And Hotel Room. I can't remember the character's name from Blackout, but
Alicia Witt.
Yeah. That was something that happened later in the process. It was something that we, there's some characters there that we're overlooking and they need to be in there.
I'm glad you had that one. And you also had Ruth from On the Air. I think that was another kind of obscure pick, but I really think it was the right pick.
Yeah. So, we don't want to just hit, everyone knows we're going to do Dale Cooper. Everyone knows we're going to do the Henry from Eraserhead, but, we've got some other characters that are important that get overlooked often, so we'll have those in there.
So you guys mentioned social media before. When Women of Lynch came out, we got a couple weird tweets or comments on where they were like, I bet they don't do Men of Lynch. Like, what are you like? We were always planning on doing Men of Lynch. I was like, are you kidding me? So we did not do it from some social pressure. We were always planning, if we made it to year 3, that we would do a Men of Lynch. And yes, if we make it to year 4, we will do Dogs and Cats.
The dog from On the Air.
Actually, Animals of Lynch, you could do the llama.
There's quite a few animals. There really are.
Yeah. The bird.
This is an idea.
The dog that runs away with the hand in its mouth and Wild at Heart.
What's a dog comic book? The Angry Dog? There's a bunch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey.
This isn't going to happen. So just.
So issue 8 is the last issue of the year. Can you guys share with us, looking back this year, some highlights for putting out the Blue Rose magazine?
I'll do issue 5. Issue 5, we had the opportunity to, contact Jeff Lemire, who is just a fantastic writer. He produces some of the best comic books that are out on the market right now. I don't know how many of you guys may follow some of what he does, but he puts out a comic for Image called Gideon Falls, which is just fantastic and very Twin Peaks influenced. And he's an artist and a writer. And so he drew the cover for issue 5 for us, which was a real honor for him to do that for us. And in that same issue, we have an interview with Damon Lindelof, which, that was a real highlight for me to be able to talk to someone who is such a big influence in TV Hollywood right now.
Yeah.
Got big projects coming. I'm sure you guys know about that, and obviously is responsible for shows like Lost and The Leftovers. And so he was so generous to give us time to talk about Twin Peaks. That was a super highlight for me this year.
I think for me, there's two highlights that come to mind right away. One is when I got an email from Charlotte Stewart, like probably in May, when she said, "Can I subscribe to next year? Because I don't want to miss a year of your magazine." And
awesome.
I mean, that's really cool when you get a Twin Peaks cast member like soliciting. So we didn't even have an ability to do it at that time, but I said, "Sure, Charlotte." So she is our first subscriber for year 3.
Wow.
And I don't know, that means something to me. And also that we raised about $2,000 in 2018, well, really 2017 to 2018. We did from July to July. We raised over $2,000. I got to figure out what the exact figure is, but for Catherine Coulson's Welcome Fund.
Oh.
And we basically, everyone who subscribed, $1 came to it from last year. And then we had a couple open at events. We collected some money, and Charlotte Stewart also helped us with that. She was our celebrity spokesperson, and that all went to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. And I know that they hung up, I think, a copy of issue 1. And we help, what Catherine used to help with, which was helping the actors that moved to town that are going to be there for 3 months or whatever at a play. And so the Twin Peaks community took on Catherine's good work of goodness with that.
That's so
And
cool.
Very nice.
It was very nice. I mean, that I think will be a highlight for me, because Catherine is, for me, the inspiration of the Blue Rose. That really is what sparked it for me.
Scott, can you tell us anything about when you're in the UK Fest, the documentary that's going on about Catherine? You were part of that. Is there anything you can share with us about that?
It was, and John was interviewed too, so he can speak to this as well. I'm assuming John just talked about me the whole time.
Scott, I did talk about you in that interview. I don't know if they'll keep it. I had nothing but nice things to say about you. So,
Dang, I wonder if I can redo my interview, because
no, I hope they keep it in, because that's the only time you're really going to hear me say anything nice. So, no. I have a lot of nice things to say about you and nice things to say about Craig. And I'll just say them here. There would be no Wrapped in Plastic if it wasn't for Craig Miller. There is no doubt about that. That magazine was because of him. And there'd be no Blue Rose without Scott Ryan. There's no doubt the magazine would not exist without him. Those two people are the people who are responsible for these magazines. So I will always say that whenever I'm interviewed, wherever I am, that is something that people need to know. The hard work is done by Scott on this magazine.
That's exactly what I said too.
Wow.
No. He did ask me about you and me, but I mean, that's all gonna get cut. I kept making the joke the whole time that I was basically ready to be Lara Flynn Boyle from Dead Poets Society and be cut from the whole movie. So I'm certain that they're getting Kyle MacLachlan, and they have David Lynch and Charlotte Stewart and
Mark Frost.
Meyer and Mark Frost, and I mean, just really big people. So
right.
I don't know that I'll be in it, but I did share with them my meeting with Catherine out in Snoqualmie in 2015, and how her kindness to me in that moment, mixed with the fact that she passed away only weeks later, really did kickstart me. I said this in the documentary, and who knows if it'll make it or not, but I said, when I met Catherine, I was sitting in a cubicle at a major corporation, answering phone calls and doing things I didn't want to do. And since then, I've put out 8 issues of a magazine, 2 books, and a documentary.
And that's something.
I believe it was meeting Catherine and seeing what she did. So I was honored to get to tell my story. Whether it makes it to the movie or not is irrelevant. I feel like I got to pay due to someone who mattered to me. So it was a great experience. And Richard Green is awesome. I mean, what a great guy.
Yeah, we should mention that it was Richard Green and Peter from Welcome to Twin Peaks, who are the people who were making this documentary on Catherine Coulson, and they were there at the Twin Peaks UK Festival. They were talking to people and getting additional footage to put in this documentary. And Scott and I were both lucky that they wanted to sit down and they talked to each of us individually about our history with Twin Peaks and what our encounters with over the years with Catherine Coulson. So that was an honor to be asked to do that, and I really enjoyed it.
Nice. And the documentary is I Know Catherine the Log Lady, and hopefully it'll be out next year, maybe.
Yeah, hopefully. He said he was going to start editing in November, so I think they must be getting at least close to it. So, I mean, that's the thing about what Lindsay, who is the organizer of the UK Fest, really pulls off. I mean, she had them do a talk, she had the cast members do a talk, John Piricello Skyped in, you had Christabel and Rebecca Del Rio performing, you have the Double R Club doing this amazing performance that I just absolutely loved. They had a performer that did a Sarah Palmer routine that was best thing I'd seen in any of the years of the Double R Club. It was a great time. She's an amazing organizer.
And Scott, we just talked about kind of the highlights of the year. People, for some reason, somebody hasn't gotten a subscription this past year. Can they still get a subscription of this past year?
Yes, everything is still up there. We are sold out of issue 1. Someone recently said, yeah, but you held some back, right? And I was like, no. Would you not know me? I'd sell one of my kids if I could. No. We don't have any issue 1s. They're gone.
But they can get 5, 6, 7, and 8 as
you can get 2 through 8. So we're on our last box of issue 2 and issue 4. When those are gone, they're gone. But everything else we're well stocked from, and there is a package up that you can get 2 through 8, or you can get 2 through 12. So that way you get everything we have and everything we'll have next year. Or you can get 9 through 12, which is what I'm assuming most of your listeners will want to do for next year.
And I definitely recommend, if you like this magazine, you want to get it now so you don't miss out on that after college and moving around. My subscription. I shouldn't say this in front of John here, but I didn't have my subscription, and so going back to when I started doing this podcast, I had to start looking for those issues, and it wasn't always easy to go back and say, okay, I'm missing this issue, I'm missing that issue. If you're interested in Twin Peaks, you're interested in Blue Rose magazine, I would just get it now, so you don't have to worry about it years down the road saying, why didn't I get that Cheryl Lee interview?
Well, and it's so much cheaper to subscribe to.
Yeah,
and that's the way we do it, because that's what we need to survive. So. I have a story to tell. Can I tell a story?
Yeah, yeah.
So there's 2 listeners out there that I don't know who they are, and I'm assuming they listen to your show.
Okay.
They probably quit listening to the Red Room podcast. So I have to apologize to 2 people that I don't know. So all weekend long at the UK Fest, people were so nice. They were coming up all the time to tell me how much they love the Blue Rose magazine and how much they love John Thorne. I got to, which is great for me because I love John Thorne too. And I was just really on all weekend about being really polite and thankful, and I don't mind that. It's awesome that our work is noticed. But then it was over. It was Sunday night. It had been 2 days. It was over, and I walked out of the event. And I even took off my little, badge thing. And I even said to my wife, it's done. Let's get something to eat. I was starving. It was 11 o'clock at night. And this guy came up to me. He obviously was from probably Eastern Europe. And he said, I recognize your voice. You're from the Red Room podcast. And no one had mentioned the Red Room podcast the whole time. I just wasn't prepared. And I don't know what was wrong with me, but I just looked at him and I said, I'm so sick of doing that podcast. I hate it.
What?
Oh.
Now, I don't know why I said that.
You're being sarcastic, being funny as you always are.
And then I just looked at him and my wife said, Scott. And then I just looked at him and I said, I'm drunk. I didn't drink anything.
I'm drunk.
I just walked away. It was horrible. And it wasn't until we were eating about a half an hour later, I started laughing so hard remembering what happened. So I figured they quit the Red Room podcast. And they're back over here. So I'd like to apologize to those people and say I was tired. I was hungry. I don't hate the Red Room podcast. I love what I get to do. And my response to them should have been, oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I love the Red Room too. I wanted to issue that apology.
That's too funny.
It's understandable. I think it's a long day.
Man, you've been nailing it. Red Room Podcast is on fire recently with the interviews you've been getting.
Well, and I know I really had been working on it. The Julie Cruz interview was awesome, but I had worked on it a lot, and we put songs in it. And I don't hate it. I don't know why I said that. I really, I felt for Alec Baldwin. You know how he's always getting in trouble with people? It just fell right out of my mouth. I was just hungry.
Right. At the same time, you've been doing that podcast for 9 years, right? I mean...
I don't know. It might...
Has
yeah,
it been
I guess so. Probably 9 years.
I think it was 9 years, which is incredible. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing that you've been doing it that long.
I know. And I don't hate it.
So with the person that went up to Scott, he's sorry. Go back to the Red Room podcast. He likes doing it. It's all right.
Yeah, it was hard.
You know, I picture that guy going home and just burning like a Red Room podcast like poster. He's burning his shirt. He doesn't like it.
No, that's what issue. Now we know what issue 9 is going to be. It's going to be page after page of Scott apologizing.
It really was. My wife Jen was horrified with me. She was like, "Why would you say that? And why did you tell him you were drunk?" And I thought, well, there was no excuse for what I said, so I thought saying I was drunk might help.
Oh my God!
It was a horrible interaction.
And where was John to save you here? John already taken off.
John he was.
Sadly, I had left. I was not at the last part, the Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening part of the UK festival, which was, you know, the Q&A with the actors, which I would love to have been there, but we had this trip to the UK and we were trying to fit in as much as we could, and so we had some other plans, but I missed that part. But the part I did attend was a lot of fun, I must say. Just to follow up on what Scott said, it is extremely well organized, and everything is kind of in one place. You don't have to, travel to other areas, or it's all kind of condensed in one spot. But there's so much going on, and everywhere you turn, there's some element of Twin Peaks that's been added to the decor, or from the music to decorations on the wall to just even walking down hallways. They really went all out, and so I want to give them full credit and compliment for how well they did on that festival.
So, where are you at right now with Blue Rose? I mean, you said it's at the publisher. We're getting close to.
Yeah, it's at the printer. I'm assuming that probably next week I'll get it back, and then we will do the packaging and get it out. I think people will have it really close to November 1st.
Are we going to get a video of you singing?
I wanted a video of just stamping and music and
rapping and singing and.
Well, I mean, that's what happens when it does. And I think I took a request for what someone wanted me to do this time, and I forget what it would. Do you guys have any requests?
No, but now that I know you're taking requests.
I mean, I always love Billy. I know you like Billy Joel. I always like Billy Joel. You can't go wrong with Billy Joel.
Yeah, I think I did We Didn't Start the Fire, though.
Yeah, I think you already have. Yeah.
Maybe I'll do River of Dreams. My dream come true. So
but as on your podcast, you said that was Billy Joel didn't like that one, or it wasn't a success. That one didn't do very well for him, even though it was actually a successful album.
I know. Yeah, that was such a crazy interview. That guy.
Yep.
I can't think of his name right now. That did the interview with Billy. He has my dream job.
That was a good podcast.
Any listeners that you have who are in Dallas, and if you're going to see Cheryl Lee and Ray Wise, John and I are going to be there. And then the following day at Intrabang Bookstore, I will be doing a Letterman signing and reading and Q&A. So if you're going to be in the Dallas area on November 18th, come out to Intrabang Books and I'll be peddling my Letterman book and doing a reading. And then on November 10th, I'll be in Columbus in my hometown at Easton Barnes & Noble doing a reading and signing there as well.
Awesome.
Wow, that's awesome.
You guys get around, don't you?
That's great. Come do a reading over in our neck of the woods, Scott.
That would be fun. It's really hard to get anyone interested in an author. I have a publicist for the Dave book, and she did contact me and said, I tried to get you on a show. They said your name wasn't big enough. And I said, could you tell them my name is Scottito O. Van Ryan? I don't think my publicist likes me.
Oh,
She thought it was funny.
that was good.
It was great talking with you. One more time, how can people subscribe to the Blue Rose magazine for issue 8?
BlueRoseMag.com. Everything is out there. If you haven't got issue 8 yet, you're going to want to. We are lowering what we were printing, and we're going to stay at that lower level. We were sort of thinking we were going to grow, and we were ordering a ton of magazines, and that's sort of not going to be our business model moving forward. So I should have pointed that out in subscription, that it's going to be a get it or lose it type of atmosphere moving forward. And so you're going to want to go out, get issue 8, and year 3 is now officially opened for the first time.
And where can everybody find you and John on social media?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Thorne Whip, THORNEWIP. That's pretty much it for me, but I'm there.
At Blue Rose Mag 1 is the Blue Rose, and at Scott Luck Story is my Letterman account or whatever I'm working on at that moment.
And your book, the Letterman book, is right. I'm almost done with the Room to Dream, and your book is right underneath it, ready to go. I'm very excited to read it.
You already got it? You already got a copy?
I got a copy.
I did order one just recently.
I ordered it like
I know, but
before Scott even said the word Letterman, I ordered it. I was like, yeah, done. I got it.
I just recently ordered it, so when will I expect to get my book?
Your book will be on its way. The book comes out officially November 6th.
Okay. Well, you got an early copy, Brian?
I think some other people did too.
Right. Part of the thing is that we didn't know we were going to get a distributor for the book. So I had put the book up on pre-order on April 12th for Dave's birthday, because at that point I wanted the book to come out in September. When we got the distributor, they asked for more time. They said, we won't be able to market this in time. Can we move the book back to November? And I said, yeah, but I said, I sold some already. Do you care if I supply those? And then when they heard how few I had sold, they said, we don't care about that. So, the inner circle that went out in April and bought them early, I did supply them. So there are a peppering of books out there, but I figure it's like creating some buzz.
Yes.
But for the world, now that it has a distributor, it's November 6th, which is election day. And so I say vote for Dave, and be sure you go out and vote for your country as well.
Very well said.
Thank you, John Scott.
Yeah, my pleasure. Always fun talking to you guys.
And you can follow us at Twin Peaks Unwrapped. You can like us on Facebook at Twin Peaks. And if you have a comment, a theory, a question, you can send us an email at twinpeaksunwrapped@gmail.com. Also, give us that 5-star review on iTunes, and you can follow us on YouTube. We're also on Spotify. We're on Google Play. Am I missing anything, Ben?
Well, you can always support us using going to TeePublic. We have shirts and mugs and
Cell phone cases,
and that just a percentage of that will go back to us, and it helps support this podcast. And usually, it'll help pay for our server, and sometimes if we need to buy a DVD to watch and talk about, that'll help that out.
Yeah, and you can find that link in the show notes every week. That link is there. And don't forget, the holidays are coming up. Not only can you find Twin Peaks Unwrapped merchandise in our merch store, there's some other people we highlight from the TeePublic Twin Peaks community. You can support those people as well. So you can do that to support us. And with that being said, we'll see you guys later on.
See you next week.
My seeking my mind floating through space, and I have sent my love beyond the sun. He calls me nothing in this great big world like you and me. Nothing in this great big world like you and me. Like stars you're far from me, it's somehow part of me.